Alright, so this is gonna be a terrible one. Uh, this is regarding the young woman who was found dead in that singer's car. Um, One thing that I've noticed about it that has kind of perplexed me is that people are offended that there's the language being used that they called her a hoe. And while it is important to not victim blame, as many on the left would say, for someone who clearly wasn't mature or didn't have as much money or presence as the person that did it, or allegedly. Um, that goes to show all of this is allegedly, but if this is the situation, because we live in a day and age where information changes all the time, so I'll reserve myself from making outright judgments or try to, but I also want to express this opinion is how is that not hoe shit? Like, obviously, fuck the person if it's the person in the end who did it, fuck them. But at the same time, do we not have shame anymore? Like, am I supposed to hear that and not think that this person was? Like, of course, it's deplorable to be with somebody that young. But I feel like in all our arguments, where from the 2010s onward, we fought hard to take the blame off of women, because normally women of all kinds were back then would be blamed, like, don't hang around that person, that's not a dangerous person, what are you wearing around them? And like, this is real old school kind of thing, the same way where if you find yourself next to somebody, they're like, dude, that's somebody's like daughter, this and that. I'm like, I'm not fucking talking to them or whatever, but it's just an older era, just a way of doing things. And we used to get on the people that used to be mad at the girls and young ladies to women, all of them, that they would get shamed for acting a certain way. But now, after years of arguing that it's not their fault, are we really just going to keep saying it's not their fault? Is there not at least a little bit of foolishness or naivete associated with that? And when I say that, I'm just saying, like, there has to be some kind of knowledge of what's going on. There's plenty of other celebrities that have underage fans that this doesn't happen to. Or at least I'd like to think. Sign of the cross. Um, yeah, so, like, I understand that calling this person a hoe is politically incorrect, but in these areas where fucked up shit happens all the time, I imagine that's how it is. It feels like there's this imaginary thing where they want to tone police. The people who are critics of that want to tone police people's opinions and things, and you honestly can't do that on the internet because everybody expects you to have a perfect argument, and whatever you say to somebody, somebody will be like, oh, how come you don't say it to yourself? And that leads us to all this bullshit where we have to have perfect everything 24/7. But I just, I can't for the life of me not think that way, that once we removed accountability, like, where was this person's parents? And I get that the person in question, she could have lied to her parents, but at the same time, it's just like, what the fuck, where's the community then, and this and that? Because you want us to spew the same paragraphs about how this is our, so for some weirdo fucking pop star, the entirety of a gender has to suffer because this is how you are, blah blah blah. Even though just 40 years ago you hated when there was like a bad run-in with chicks, and then the radio host, the guys would be like, oh, that's how they all are, ha ha ha, and like, I just, I really, I believe in autonomy for kids, in a sense. Like, I don't know, it's hard to say because, like, I don't want to run into them in public, but I would hate for them to be cooped up in their houses all day. So, like, if they could, like, exist somewhere else where I'm not, that'd be cool. Because I'm getting into old grumpy age, and they're like, I don't know, now I guess I'm the fucking angry old person I used to complain about. Um, that being said, though, it's just, I want to be able to advocate for that, but also condemn this person just because. Alright, not condemn this person per se, but I will have to ask, what the fuck for somebody that was that visibly older. And what this gets to the heart of an issue that I don't like is I remember people my age, women, would be like recount tales of the early 2010s, late 2000s, 08, 09, all the way up to 2015 onward. And they were like, oh yeah, I basically had no business being in the back of this guy's car, but it was a 20-year-old and he took me to a party and I was basically this and that. Why the fuck are you there? Why are you sneaking into places? Why are you doing, this or that? And then that's the same thing with this person. I lament that this person is gone, but why wasn't she hanging out with people her own age? What the fuck are you doing hanging out with so many years your senior person? What the fuck? And I believe that unaddressed issue kind of just gets hand waved because I, as a young man, recount plenty of times where there's a girl I liked, and she's messing with somebody older. And that's the thing that got me mad is that now, looking back, these arguments we have about messing with older guys is only bad when the girl says it's bad. But other than that, she'll mess with whoever she feels like, and as long as it goes good, she'll think it's good and there'll be no complaint or whatever. And that's kind of why I don't like the discourse around it. I watch people say, how dare you say she was a hoe, she was a victim, this and that. But it's very reminiscent of the 13-year-old groupies of the 70s that like Led Zeppelin and David Bowie had. And I know by now you've probably seen millions of essays on it. But back then that wasn't very common knowledge. I remember when I figured out, I was certainly like, what the fuck? And that's why I'm like, what the fuck right now? Because I thought that shit died. But I guess, you're going to say, oh, well, that's just because you're uninformed, because you're a man, and you didn't know that men are still doing this. And it's like, yeah, men are still doing this, but now are we, because we've been slogging through this feminism stuff, like, are we really trying to use feminism to remove accountability from these women? And that's why you'll have to forgive me, but for the women that regale the tales of being with older people while they were in high school, I would also have to ask, what are you doing with them? And I get it. They always give you some excuse. It's like, oh, well, she doesn't know. Oh, well, there's an imbalance. Well, why the fuck aren't you hanging out with people your age? What, do you think you're cooler than them? And that kind of topic, that debate or whatever, has been around forever. And yet, it's actually very painful because it relates to real life. Now that I hit a certain age, there's all these dating advertisements where I see women that would be my age shooting down for like teenage boys or early 20 boys or whatever. And I'm like, such a thing could never exist for me, because if I do that, I'm not that I even have an interest in doing it, mind you. I'm just saying, though, this is one of those things where it doesn't pass the swap test if you switch the roles around, and I find it very creepy, and I also find it as a testament of, like, it was hard getting chicks my age back then, and now even more, they'll just shoot up or shoot down, but it just won't shoot to me or whatever, which is fine. But it's more illustrating of an issue. Do you see what I'm putting together in front of you? Does that make sense? And that is all to say, knock on wood, or I don't know. Maybe that's pagan. Sign of the cross. In Jesus' name, I hope this person finds rest, in all honesty. And I'm not one of those neo-converts or anything, but I just, to whatever religion is out there, this is incredibly fucked up. And I know that just like those activist types that take this poor soul's image and they just plaster it everywhere, and then they're like, it's not about her anymore, it's about me sharing the image. I mean, they don't say that, but I mean, that's kind of what it becomes. Even with the Black Lives Matter movement, like, I felt this way every now and then, but I didn't tell anybody, just because, like, yeah, it's important to rally behind a call, but there is some kind of selfishness to just plastering a deceased person's image and using their likeness. Kind of like in the Intifada when the Palestinians take people that died and they're like, oh, he's most heroic martyr, this and that. And it's like a little scummy, But every group does it. America does it. Like when the special forces guy died in Mali or Burkina Faso, and we're like, this is a shame. And realistically, he didn't have any air support. But it's like, you know, at the same time, what are we doing there? And then of course whatever Maghreb or terror group or whatever, they plastered over like this is his last moments, as if it's like a big victory and not a lucky you cornered him without any CAS. Um, all right, maybe that's tangential, but I'm saying though all of this is like even further is just kind of macabre, and we're having proxy arguments over this scenario. In reality, we don't really know, and that's kind of what is hard is that information moves so quickly. We have this commentary culture where everything deserves a commentary, or everybody's afraid that every other little thing will have commentary, and that is also grotesque. You should make fun of me. In a way, I can only talk so much shit about the activist people because I myself am doing it in audio form on what you hear right now. But I'm just saying that because now I'm looking back and this is like the umpteenth time that I hear that, and it's just like, why though? But why weren't you just with your own? Why did you know what I mean? Like, and I think that is important to ask because it just doesn't it gets hand waved. Like, I understand these women have this and that, and I think it's important to say that, but at the same time, I feel like if we had the shame that we had in place in the 2000s, it would have at least made it a little, you know what I mean? Like, don't be a fast woman, watch you hang out with this and that. Now you can't tell anybody anything. And I should word myself carefully. I don't know if I want every single aspect of that to come back, but at the same time, I'm asking you, at what point are you not going to be wary of the world? At what point are you just fighting for the right to be some kind of like uninformed idiot? Why don't any of you think that? Like, for the most part, I at least would like to think that boys are a little more cautious because everything else is like face value. You find out right away if you're ugly, boom. You find out right away if you're funny because people will gravitate towards you, boom, and it's around you. But if not, then, but like women are just a little more airy and they don't see a lot of the slack that they get cut. Like, rightfully, I also had slack in my life that I don't see. And like, realistically, if it is, sometimes you don't even know it's there until it's pointed out to you. But that's the thing, that these people argue for this, and then they say, I'm actually doing you a favor, ha ha ha, and they see themselves as like pseudo-masculine, like, bro, I'm doing you the favor. Look at all these guys arguing in my comments and in my DMs. I ignore them, and it's like this kind of pseudo-masculinity and moral posturing for what? For bullshit? For commentary on somebody who's already passed, away. May they rest in peace. I'm just saying. Again, though, like, is shame and accountability just gonna leave the room forever, or can we invite them back in and pour them a glass of water? Maybe I don't know. And that's not to say that directly to this person. I'm not trying to make light of this victim's unfortunate passing or circumstances, but I'm also questioning. Like with the death of anybody, it really sucks because you're just not there to see how it affects people. And with that, I say, in this person's absence, what are we as a society going to ask ourselves? Because, this is going to be water room talk, I think what's more grotesque is like the memes of how guilty the person is overshadow the victimhood or whatever. And I guess you can't help that because the internet is macabre and it doesn't hold back and it comments on everything. But I don't know. Maybe this is food for thought. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I understand if it comes off as offensive, you might fucking, chew me out or whatever. I couldn't help but think that when I see all the discourse, I scroll past it. Because there's a lot of it. And I wonder, But anyway, may this person rest in peace. May their loved ones not have to deal with a lot. Hopefully they just mute social media and just do whatever they have to do. And if you're planning on arguing with anybody, just try not to. I doubt that there's anything, fruitful that could come of that. So, with that in mind, and today, a very somber day. Today is also the day of a funeral. I won't divulge too much, but death can be hard to talk about. So, I'm trying to end this on a good note. I know that this happens. You really can't defend your offspring from everything bad in the world, and this is always a possibility. It's something I wouldn't wish on somebody. In general, I think before, like when I've been um, the watchful eye for a younger sibling, and I feels like I lost them, that is fucking scary. If you ever had somebody in your care and you like go through the panic of where are they, doesn't matter if it's like children, a dog, a pet, or whatever. Just the fact of like the mental rush of your eyes darting and you're becoming way more defensive and offensive at the same time, and it's just not. And then the same thing with like the loss and somber quiet of death is just, for what few funerals I've been to, it's just the air is heavy, and the people closest to them are bawling their eyes out. And this does happen though. I do take an unflinching look at it because unfortunately it will be all of us one day. Hopefully later rather than sooner. Um, yeah, so if I could say all that, I hope you have a great day. I wish a good day for those who have passed and that they're in our memory. And yeah, but I also acknowledge if you call me a fucking piece of shit and you say this is just trauma porn or whatever, like, that's fine. But whether you believe it or not, I mean it sincerely. Perhaps this is just dealing with all of that in audio. Have a nice day with the productions.